Ali,
Simone.
2022 London International Awards. You are one of the jury presidents, and one of my favorite person. I gotta say,
am
we
flattered.
met. I mean, it was the first time we met this
Yes.
week, but we talked a couple of times,
Yeah.
more than a couple of times.
It feels like we know each other for a while now.
Yeah,
actually.
it does feel. So I'm so honored to have you here on Ocean 15, and to have the opportunity to interview you, to cross your ocean.
Honor is all mine. Pleasure is all
In
mine.
Las Vegas. How does it feel to be in Las Vegas?
Look, it just feels great to be at a show that is happening in person, first of all.
That's great.
I don't think we're going back to online judging ever again, if we don't have to. But no, it feels great to be in Vegas. The weather is lovely. It's outside. It's I think 35 degrees. Inside it's about minus 10. Thanks to the air
You counting
conditioning.
for all our American guests. Just want to remind that you counting Celsius, because if they hear 35 degree, it's freaking cold in Fahrenheit.
Yes, it's
So
centigrade.
Celsius.
Let me clarify.
Let me clarify.
Yeah, good point.
So we're talking about 96, 97
Yes.
Fahrenheit, something
Yes.
like this.
Yes.
But yeah, I clarify because I grew up with Celsius, and then when I came here, I used to say hey, is it hot there? My European friends, yeah, it's around 95. They were like, what? 95?
We're all gonna boil.
It's a boiling point.
Yeah.
Okay, look, I'm gonna go through the 7 questions, the 7 seas, and cross your ocean. So let's start with the first one. Now, the deepest point ever reached by a man in the ocean is almost 36,000 feet below the surface of the ocean, which happens to be as deep as water gets on Earth. To go deeper, you had to travel to the bottom of the Challenger Deep, 200 miles southwest of Guam, and you're going to need a shovel. In advertising terms, your career, you've been in many different places, and your background is it's amazing. Hopefully, we can touch upon that also, your personal background, the way you grew up. You definitely come from a very deep, I would say environment and background. I think I'm sure that you don't use a shovel to get deep into things, but what kind of lens or what kind of instrument do you use to dig deep into the creative process?
That's a really deep question.
It
Good one
is.
to start with. Look, I think I'm what they term as a third culture kid. So it's always odd for me when somebody asks me where I'm from, because I was born in a certain place. I grew up in another. Then I moved and lived in a third, and now I've been living in a fourth for a while. So it's very tough for me to determine where exactly I come from. And I think that's a really positive thing. And
It is a positive thing.
because that gives you a lot of different viewpoints.
Right.
A lot of different. We are a product of what we absorb.
Of course.
And the more different things we absorb, the wider our range gets.
Was
in
it
terms-
always like this? At which point in your childhood you start appreciating this? Because I'm sure that maybe at the beginning it wasn't always this. I see with my kids, they are completely cocktail different culture, because my wife is half Filipino. They were born in America. I'm half Italian. They lived in so many different places. So I think my 11-year-old just recently start appreciating this multicultural exposure. But I remember when she was 6 and 7, she was complaining about it.
No, as far as I remember, I think very early on, even my grandparents and my parents were very particular about making sure that there was a very diverse set of educational values that they gave us. And I see that passing on to my son now, because he is, he has nationality of 3 different countries. We take him to travel everywhere possible. He's living in the Middle East now, but he goes to a school where there are 50 plus nationalities of children as well. So there is an exposure that goes beyond just what his culture is supposed to be. But I think, just to answer your original question, I think that the tool to use here would be, simply put, just curiosity. And I think if you start being exposed to all these different things, it instills in you this desire to keep learning about more things. You don't settle down for the first or the second or the third thing. You want to know what the 12th or the 15th or the 25th thing is, and you just keep pushing yourself to discover more. I would say that is
Yeah,
exactly
curiosity is a great propeller. My pessimistic inner self sometimes look at curiosity as to learn more is like, it makes you feel like one lifetime and won't be enough to learn all the things you want to
really
learn.
not.
Sometimes I think about it's when this existence is gonna end, damn it, I can't read any more books, and I want to read more books, and I have so many books left that I need to read, or so many movies that I need to watch, so many things I need to experience, and curiosity can work on a very different level. And but yeah, definitely is a great shovel to dig deep into your existence.
It really is, and there's so much to discover. To your point, why would you stop yourself at a certain point? And I think that helps in the creativity process as well. I think that
awesome.
helps a lot.
Here's a little story from David Foster Wallace. So he's one of my favorite writers, and there are two young fish swimming in the ocean, and they meet an older fish. And the older fish passed them by, and then he asked them "Hi boys, how is the water today?" They look at each other, the young fish, and they say, "What the hell is water?" So that made me think kind of the parallel between young generation in the creative business and more mature generation in the creative business. Do you think that there is a discrepancy, a divider between this generation? That there is almost a non-understanding or looking at the same things with the same lens, to the point that a young creative may look at an old creative and say, "What the hell is water? What are you talking about?"
Yeah, I think the one thing I would pick is the usage of time and the value of time, right? I think things have gotten much faster, and if you speak to somebody who's older and how they've utilized their time versus somebody who's younger, I feel that there's a definite sense of impatience and a sense of let's move on to the next thing, rather than giving something a little more time as well. I was just a few minutes ago, I was speaking to Piyush Pandey, and I asked him how long he's been at Ogilvy, and he said 40 years. I was just like, oh my God, exactly, right? So it's 40 years. Where I work, Impact BBDO, our chairman, Danny Richa, who also comes from a creative background, he's been there 35 years. And to me, that sort of thing, my father worked for the same organization for 30 plus years. And I think in my generation, that got shortened to a lesser extent, and I think it just gets shorter and shorter. Now when you look at the younger generation, there's a lot of let's just keep bouncing, let's just keep moving.
There is something interesting I read. In advertising, we divide generation by we label generation, right? So I believe you might be Generation X, right? My generation, then millennials, and then we have Generation Z. My daughter, she's 11, she's Generation Alpha. And I read about something about them, about Generation Alpha, and it said that's where Generation X, compared to our fathers and our parents, so we kind of fragmented the length of our employments. Generation Z brought this employment to a very, very short time. What Generation Alpha is going to do, they're going to end up doing multiple jobs.
Yeah.
It's not going to be such a thing as I do one job, but you're going to do multiple jobs in 30 years from now, which I found fascinating, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even now when you look, even if somebody's doing one job, they're doing multiple skills within that job. I think even when you look within, and let's take an agency, for instance, right? The skill sets are being combined within one person, right? I mean, you have what we call all-rounders. They're doing multiple things, and people are looking for people like that. And I think that's only going to expand into people
Definitely.
just taking several things on.
Awesome, man. I love that because I love like to have like multiple contracts. You know, it's like
it's progression.
not
It's
to be like just like stuck with one thing and one thing only. I know my dad, like if he were to listen to me, like he would appreciate that, but you know. Okay, 4 question. Actually, I think it's the 3rd question that we have here. But if you want to go on the longest boat ride in the world, you need to take the path that goes from the southern Pakistan. And you were raised, we just talked about, in Pakistan, to northern Russia, which cover like 32,000 kilometers. Is the longest straight line journey on Earth. From southern Pakistan to Russia is the longest.
I did not know this.
Neither did I, but I Googled it.
That's pretty awesome.
Talking about straight journey, like, you know, and looking at your advertising career, looking back for a moment, if you really like look in the rear mirror, do you see a lot of twist and turn? Do you see a straight line? What do you see?
Definitely not a straight line. And I think, I mean, even going before advertising, so I never, when I was in college, I never intended to go into advertising.
So you bump into it?
Well, I sort of fell into it in a way that I was studying to be an engineer, right? And I decided in my exam, when we were actually filling out papers, that I did not want to do it anymore because I was more interested in art. So I decided to...
What kind of art?
Anything in art, but mostly around something to do with creativity. And I just felt that I was getting very claustrophobic in science. And so I decided right then that I would draw my examiner's face on the exam paper. And I did that and I handed it back to him, even though I knew the answers. And, you know, he was very shocked and I just walked out. And then went to my parents and told them, look, I don't want to do this. I want to do art. And to their credit, they said, okay, fine, whatever, man. I mean, you know, it's your life, you just see how it goes. And that got me exposed to advertising. And I just felt that there was a really cool form of applied art, which encompassed all other art forms. When you think about it, you have writing, you have filmmaking, you have graphic design, you have sculpture, you have architecture. Everything comes into form in advertising, and I just got really interested in it. So that to me that's definitely not a straight line. That's a sharp turn. And even when I was in advertising, I think along the way, changing gears, changing lanes. I was working for places that were not particularly good for my career, and then jumping to another place, losing jobs. Sometimes work for me definitely worked out for the best. Changing geographies, that was a very sharp turn as well, which was one of the best decisions I made. And so I don't think most people have straight lines anymore. Right. I think that friction and that conflict is a good thing.
I want to go back to what you just say, like advertising encompass all the arts that, like, you know, script writing and you know, editing and, like, you know, and photography and concepting. There is a double sword over there, because I do think that encompass all this, but I do think that craft nothing of this. Like, I think that it goes not enough deep, and that's why my first question was about depth. So I do think that, yes, we do script writing, but it's not as crafted as a movie script writing. Yes, we do editing, but it's not as crafted as editing in, like, you know, in filming. Yes, we do photography, but it's not as crafted. I felt that advertising, it's a little bit of everything without going depth.
Yeah.
In nothing almost.
Yeah, I agree for the most part, right? And that's what separates the average stuff from the brilliant stuff, right? I'll take the example of, let's say, the Guinness surfer sport. Right?
Oh my God.
Right, exactly. So it's that's filmmaking at its best. That's writing at its best. Yeah. That's, you know, everything that even the sound.
But do you
design
think a
is
sport
beautiful.
like that could have been made today? Because I don't think actually it's funny because we, like, you know, here in Vegas, I think, like, among all us, like, you know, the jury and creative, we touch upon a lot of, like, these arguments. I think just yesterday I was talking about with Mark Ross. He wrote Real Men of Genius.
Right.
Right?
Of course.
We all know Real Men of Genius. Probably young generation don't, but it's like, we talk about that on Ocean 15 podcast, and we agree upon the fact that that radio couldn't be written today. It couldn't be written not just because it's not culturally relevant as it was back then, but also because you had to truly take in consideration the historical moment things are created. And I think that even when you look upon The Surfer, at that beautiful masterpiece of Jonathan Glazer, the time it was created, the time where production were different, when you were allowed to create certain kind of like film with certain kind of age. I think that, I don't know, it's not about being pessimistic, it's about recognizing change. When change comes, you get accepted all the way through. Another example, someone interviewed Michael Scott, the protagonist, of the actor from The Office, they were saying it's like The Office could never in a million years run today on American TV, never. 2022.
I think what you said about change is very apt. I think obviously art forms also change.
Right.
If I were to look at filmmaking, would somebody like Fellini or
even Quentin Tarantino with Reservoir Dogs.
Right? But that is not to say that for this era, when you watch a movie like Parasite, for instance, right? It's absolutely brilliant, but it's not that kind of brilliant that somebody directing Doctor Strangelove would watching Doctor Strangelove would feel. I think the same applies to majority of art forms, right? Even if you look at classic fine art and you look at the Renaissance period, you wouldn't do that stuff now because we've moved on. But that is not to say that is absolutely brilliant. Like I can still go into a museum and cry looking at these things.
But I think that nobody will give you would never have, even if you were Stanley Kubrick today, that amount of time. You were never given that amount of time by any studios anymore to create such piece.
Yeah, that's accurate, and that goes back to also I think just all this time being sped up because, and what I was saying earlier about the multi-skills for one person coming in. I mean, from what I read, if you had to do a print ad maybe 40 years ago, you had to go hire a typographer to set the type for you, and that was a specialized skill, right? Until the art director who was putting the stuff together on the print ad just managed to do it themselves. And, so it just keeps getting
very
faster
interesting,
and faster.
man. It's somehow absolutely, my position is not about criticizing, it's more about observing.
No.
And we are the sons of our time, and I do think it's just very fascinating to observe how when change comes, there are this domino effect where every single fragment in the big picture, every single piece in this mosaic, which is life, it's gonna change accordingly.
No, I love that point, and I think it's very valid for the art forms. In fact, I saw a skit on this the other day when somebody was saying that a song like Bohemian Rhapsody, would it ever be written again?
12,
my God, that's utter pure brilliance. Something like Ground Control to Major Tom. I mean, this is stuff that's not going to be written now. But we're in a different.
It's funny because there was an interview that goes around on the web. It got million viewers, and it's an interview to Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
And the interviewer is asking Bob Dylan about "It's a Rhyma," like a song that he wrote, and some of the songs they wrote back then, and he asked him can you write a song like that? And he was like, no, I can't. And he was like, what do you mean you can't? And it was like, I can't write things like that anymore. It's like, he says how can you write things like that? It's like I live in a different time. Maybe I can write other things, but that I can't. And he says and the interview asked him does it make you sad? And it was like, it neither sad or happy, it's just the way it is.
It is what it is.
I've done that once, and that's it. But there is that kind of defined moment where you realize that what you've done, it was so engraved in the time, in the context, in the history that you were doing it.
Yeah.
That can't be repeated. Why? Twice. Anyway,
Yeah.
4th question. Google reads, the sea is one of the biggest reasons to visit Dubai. That's what they say. You left California and came to this glimmering city, Dubai, that attracts million tourists every year. You flags from a dreamland to another dreamland. You remind me of a song, one of my favorite, band, INXS. In this song, there's a line that says, I told you that you could fly, because we all have wings, but someone has, don't know why. When did you realize that you had the wings to take upon this adventure and leave a place to fly onto another and leave like everything behind?
So before I answer that question, I want you to know that INXS was actually one of my first bosses right out of college. I worked for them as a graphic designer. So I love that you brought that up.
Is it Michael? Michael was your first boss?
It's technically, yes, yeah.
What an amazing, brilliant human being that was.
Yeah, he was absolutely stunning. So no, I know that song very well. Look, I think part of that goes back to the first question you asked about the fact that I was I was in a plane when I was 2 weeks old, and ever since then my parents took me all over the world, and I think that desire to constantly keep moving was instilled very early on. So for me, to set off on an adventure is something that's very necessary, and it was always part of
it's vital.
Things. It's vital. You have to do.
Yeah.
You have to look and not be afraid of exploring something. Now, I moved from California to the Middle East for family reasons. My mother was living in Pakistan. I wanted to be close enough to her. I'd lived in California for almost 20 years, and I just thought, why not try something?
Where did you live in
absolutely new.
California?
San Francisco.
San Francisco, yeah.
Which is probably the nicest place to live in.
I lived there like 3.5 years, but unfortunately, I look at every city through the lens of motorcycles. So for me, it was like a hell of a. It wasn't like very pleasurable to cross the Golden Gate every single morning with my motorcycle. So I was like, but I do love San Francisco though.
So that and I felt that Dubai was the right place to be, not only from that perspective, but also from the perspective of. I want to go where the next is. And I think Dubai, UAE, Middle East, that is where the next is going to happen.
That's where the next is.
That's where the next is. And I think just the way it's developing, the way it's growing, the ambition there, it's astounding. It's astounding what they want to achieve and what they've already achieved in just a very short period of time. If you look at where the UAE was 30 years ago, they had none of this. And it's incredible right now. But also what they're planning for the future is pretty amazing. We have a Museum of the Future in
Yes,
Dubai.
I do. I hear, I've never been in Dubai, but I hear.
Please come visit.
I will.
Stay with me if you like. And I'm serious. It's just amazing to be part of that. It's a daily source of inspiration for you that, look, everybody here has that aligned ambition to move things forward.
That's
Got
awesome.
to Mars.
I'll take word for them, man.
Yeah.
Definitely. Look, 5th question. When crossing the ocean, future and present stretch further apart. You have to take care of the moments, and every decision you make must be rooted in a deep understanding of your momentary positioning at the sea. Let's say it's like present and future. It's something that occur all the time through many, interviews that I've seen and watched in the advertising industry. Actually, I gotta say that in advertising, we are extremely obsessed with future. There's no day that goes by that people talk about future or they toss at you the word innovation, which I start despairing so bad I can't hear it anymore. Well, what about the moment, the exact moment right now, even right now, Monday, 2022, October? When you look at the moment we're living in advertising, is it all exciting? Is it all bad? Is it lukewarm? What is it, the moment, right this moment?
I think I would pick lukewarm.
Lukewarm. Oh,
yeah.
that's surprising to me, but
I
interesting.
would, for the most part, because I think that there are certain good points that have come up now in advertising. Right? There's a lot of emphasis on, in the present at least, there's a lot more emphasis on the balance of purpose and profit, of course, which is a really amazing thing. There's also a lot of emphasis on personal time and mental health, which obviously wasn't part of the conversation before. And I think the way we approach the business has sort of changed with all that perspective in mind as well. In terms of, and I'm not going to use the word innovation because obviously you're right, you must have heard that many, many times. But honestly, as far as the basics go, Simone, I think they're all the same. I mean, you know, I just finished judging the film category, and everybody reacted to stuff the same way they would have reacted maybe 50 years ago.
Do you think that's okay? When did you start working advertising?
Around 98, 99.
Okay, let's pick up a moment in 1998. Let's pick up a Monday in 1998. And then let's go pick up this Monday in 2022. Let's forget everything in between. And let's put these 2 Mondays together. Do you think they will understand each other when talking, or they will not understanding each other?
On some things they would understand each other. On the basics they would.
Okay.
The basics are the same, right? You have to come up with something original, something entertaining, something fantastic. For the most part, in terms of application, they wouldn't, because things are much faster. The tools you use are different. The kind of conversations you're having are different. The kind of things you're watching out for are different. But I still think the basics are the same, man. It is creating stuff that people want to spend time absorbing.
Yeah,
that's
I agree,
the job.
I agree. The instinct, the basic is the same as like, and still is an idea business. It's like, you know, driven by ideas, and like, you know, hopefully we can go back to that. Sometimes I feel it's lost. Sometimes I feel like that the word, instead of being like a creative business, it's just a business.
Yeah.
And the word creative just like fade away, like, you know, like those ending title at the end of a movie. But then my hope is like that ending title is gonna come back.
Yeah.
And like as a word, and like I think like creative business, such a beautiful place to be.
It really is. And I think that is, I mean, that's at least what I sell, or any creative sells.
Of course.
It's the creativity aspect of things.
Of course.
Doing things in a new way.
Ocean is an acronym for like 5 big personality traits. I don't know if you knew that, but there is actually a psychological test that therapists and psychologists like run on you, and it's like the acronym is Ocean. O, openness. C, consciousness. E, extraversion. A, agreeableness. And N, neuroticism. The first trait, openness to experience, is fundamental to our work. What was an experience in the past 12 months that you encounter and you truly were completely open and say, yes, I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna open this door and just like suck everything of it. Every single like possible knowledge that is there, I'm gonna have it.
Oh, wow. In the last 12 months.
The last 12 months.
I mean, I can go a little...
It could be like 24 months, but recently.
Okay.
It was anything that you say, I want to learn everything about it now. I didn't know nothing before, and now I want to learn everything about it.
Well, if I were to go a little further back, I'd say parenthood. That's one definite
But that's
thing.
something that you learn day by day.
Yes, and I don't think I'll ever stop learning. I don't think none of us to ever do. Gosh, you know...
Let me help you, man.
think.
You know,
Yeah.
sometimes I'm a type of person that binge a lot. I'm actually kind of like hypertextual person, right? Even the way I explore and surf the web is very hypertextual. I start Wikipedia, and then like it's full of hyperlinks.
Yeah.
And it gets me like, you know, out there in the open water. I find myself after 2 hours reading about something that I never thought I would be reading that.
Right.
But from time to time, what happens to me, I just stumble upon things. It could be like, you know, a person history, or it could be like a moment in time, and I get obsessed. And I expose myself to that experience until I can't do it anymore. that truly I can't do it anymore. Like, you know, and a stupid example that just like, you know, I was never like a big fan of Bruce Springsteen, never. Like, you know, of course, like I know some of his songs, but somehow 2 months ago I bumped into like, you know, Dancing in the Dark. And maybe it happened that day that I listened to it very carefully. And I wanted to know everything about it, when it was written, why it was written, what went in there, like, you know, what was the relationship with Bruce Springsteen and the label regular at that time, and everything, obsessed. And I think it lasted like 2.5 weeks, and then he ended like that. But I exposed myself to that consciously, and I absorbed everything I could.
Okay, good. So I do have an answer for you then. So I used to be, when I was living in California, I used to be into biking, and then I dropped it, and for years, like I didn't bike for another, I think, close to 15 years. And then when COVID happened, obviously a lot of people started buying bikes when they started to get out. But just lately, over the last 2 years, like I've thrown myself completely into it. And when I say thrown myself completely into it, it's absolutely to a point of obsession now. It's
see, that's what I mean.
And not only from I just want to do this a lot, I find myself doing it in a way where it gets riskier and riskier. So I do mountain biking, right? So I keep pushing myself to go for the crazier and crazier downhills. You want to go faster and faster. And I'm actually learning how to do that more. I'm investing time into just getting deeper into it. So maybe that's the closest I can
That's
answer that.
exactly what I was looking for. Like, you know, because I think that it's very weird how it's like in our life, like, you know, sometimes we come close to certain kind of like experience and like we decide to go for it or to not go for it. And we don't do it like, you know, consciously. Like, you know, for lack of a better word, you say it's like you get passionate or you get like, but it's more than a hobby, you say. It's like you develop an obsession, and then this obsession is like a flame, extinguish eventually, but you don't know when. Like it could last like 2 weeks, it could last 2 years. I had my obsession, like, you know, I was obsessed with CrossFit for like 2 years, full 2 years. Like I couldn't think of anything else but CrossFit, you know. And then of course I have obsession that last like a lifetime, like reading books or like, you know, riding motorcycles. That like, those are not even obsession. Those are part of me as like a part of my battle systems. But again, like, you know, also I have like weird obsession. Like, you know, I spent like, I remember 2020 just watching like eating competition. I don't know, man. I don't even like, you know, it's like I was anorexic. Like, was there even a meaning why I was watching like eating competition and like waiting for like 4th of July when like, you know, they eat like a dog on Coney Island. Watching on YouTube. You know what I mean? It's like no meaning.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Every once in a while you'll find that one thing. And like I had a phase, and I've still got remnants of it, where I just wanted to know everything about the Cold War.
Yes.
I've always loved Soviet history and stuff, and I just threw myself into it. I bought books after books.
And then you drop
documentaries, and then you just sort of walk away from it.
Yes.
Maybe I'll come back to it at some point. But just to go back to mountain biking, I think what that really works out for me, besides just the adrenaline rush you get out of it, is what you just said about, you know, when you're mountain biking, you have to make decisions very quickly.
Yes.
Right? You have to find your path. You have to look ahead on the path. But you have a split second to make the decision. Am I going to go for this ramp? Am I not going to go for this ramp? And more often than not, you find yourself going for it. And it's a great little push you get within yourself where it's like, oh, I can do this. And you have literally less than a second to make that call. So it's a great trainer,
That's
I
awesome,
think.
man. Look, last question is the question that we ask to all our guests, all our presidents here at like London International Awards. And when are you flying back to?
Tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning, I believe you're gonna pack your stuff, and like, you know, I'm gonna ask you to pick 2 memories from this week. And I'm gonna ask you to put one of your memory in your luggage and one in your carry-on.
Oh boy.
Which one goes where and why?
Okay. And it has to be from the show or just from generally?
It has to be from the show.
Okay, because I was going to take an
We're
example.
From the show that's like is taking place in Vegas. It doesn't have to be related to advertising.
Okay.
So don't tell me that you're going to compress your 11 like jury president into your luggage.
No, that would be interesting. No, look, from Vegas itself, I went to watch Roger Waters perform 2 nights ago.
Did you like it?
I loved it. Absolutely. It's the first time I've been meaning to see Pink Floyd so many times, and I missed them.
Right.
But it's the first time I got to see him.
That's another thing I got obsessed with in the past. Like I think like it was in the past months. It just extinguished just like last month. I got re-obsessed with like the Dark Side of the Moon of Pink Floyd, the album written in 1973, to the point that in my signature email now, I put one of the line of the song, and it says like, "Don't be afraid to care," which came from that album. But now the obsession is gone.
There is so much beautiful stuff.
So you're gonna
in
put
album.
that in your luggage or carry on?
I want to put that in my luggage because I want to make sure that because it's vast, right?
You know that
It's,
your luggage can be lost, right?
Not if I put a tracker in it.
The innovation guy is talking
Look, no,
now.
the reason I say that is because there's vast knowledge, and you know, I can even go back to your earlier point of nobody will write that stuff anymore. But what I really loved about his work, and it reminded me, is that he was very political in his concert.
Yeah, Roger
right?
Waters is
He's
very
very political.
yeah.
And he started his concert by even saying that if you don't agree with my music, you can just
you
F
can
off to
fuck
the
off.
bar.
Yeah.
And it made me realize that he's using his art, his voice, for something he truly believes in.
Absolutely.
It could be anything.
Admirable.
But he thinks it's like he talks about war and he talks about the military complex and whatever else it is. But he is invested in that, and he uses his power, his creativity for that purpose. I mean, obviously generates profit from it as well, but there is a sense of responsibility there, which is really amazing, and it was really powerful to watch. So that I'm definitely taking back with me as a reminder. You know, it's like, come on, we have so much power within our grasps, and we, in the creative industry especially, and we can choose to make a difference.
That's awesome, man.
And have the courage to outrightly say so.
What do you put in your carry-on?
So carry-on is something small I learned, but
Right.
it's going to be very helpful for me and it is about advertising. But there's a simpler meaning to it. It's like, you know, a lot of cases that I came across while I was judging were named very bizarrely. They didn't
Really?
So you know, you're going through so many cases and you'd come across something and you'd be like, what is that? What? Oh, of course it's this one. And then you play it and you're like, of course it's this one. And it just occurred to me that sometimes we just complicate things. We can keep things at their simplest and it'll actually work better for us. I think we tend to layer things too much. And that's a lesson I definitely want to take back with me.
Thank you so much, Ali, for
Simone,
being
pleasure.
part of Ocean 15, and it was a pleasure. Travel safe, okay?
Thank you, my friend. Yeah, it's the best interview talk I've been on.
Really?